The NFC North is one of the more interesting divisions in the league because I think there's a lot of people that really enjoy to watch these teams, however they're good. The Chicago Bears, clearly not that great of a team. They're probably going to be the worst team in the division. However, they still got a big fan base. Obviously, Detroit is one of these underrated teams that I find a lot of hipsters really enjoyed to jump on. And then you got the Vikings, who definitely do have a very good defense. They just need to get their offensive priorities straight. And then you got the Packers, who are led by the bad man himself, Aaron Rodgers. Now, when it comes to this, I'm going to start off from the worst team in the division, or the most likely team to be the worst in the division, to the team that's most likely to be the best in the division. So, to start off with the Chicago Bears, not really a big surprise right there. They definitely been attacking in free agency. They've been attacking in the draft. However, they haven't been that successful of a team, and they just lost their starting receiver, or looks as if that was going to be their best one. But when I look at them, there's obviously optimism for the future. Now, when it comes to Mitch Trubisky, I was on the Mitch Trubisky train in February, I would say, but I quickly switched over to Watson after a couple of months, and I'm still sticking to Watson. However, I still think Trubisky has been the best quarterback this preseason. Now, when it comes to Trubisky, there's two things I want to bring up. Now, the fact that Trubisky looks as if he's the savior to the Chicago Bears franchise, I still feel as if that people are denouncing that it was so smart to trade up. I felt as if they stayed at number 3, they would have picked, they could have still picked Trubisky. They only moved up one spot, and they really thought the 49ers were going to draft them. Well, let's put this forward here. Look at the management and the coaching staff of the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan has coached Kirk Cousins, and obviously Kirk Cousins might be into free agency. He is not going to be this aggressive to go after a Mitch Trubisky, or he might not even be interested when his guy, Kirk Cousins, who he tried to trade for when he was in Cleveland, to bring in there. So, when I look at this, I feel like they're just going to wait for Kirk Cousins, and I feel as if that they're more as if to attack in free agency for a quarterback than so to draft one and really highly in the first or second round. Also, one thing for sure is John Lynch is their general manager. Now, John Lynch is one of these guys who I thought that should have been in the Hall of Fame. Click in the link in the description for the top 5 players that should be in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, you want to keep watching these videos because, guys, you want to really see this opinion right here, people. It's really quite majestic. Now, when it comes to back to John Lynch is a guy that he's a defensive guy. He played safety in the NFL. And when you look at that, this guy's going to definitely be drafting more on the defensive side, and it looked as if Solomon Thomas was a clear-cut guy at the number 2 spot or the number 3 spot, whatever. But a lot of people thought that Solomon Thomas was going to be one of these guys, and he ended up drafting on defense. He got Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster, 2 players that he did want. And so when you look at the 49ers, they're going to draft on defense because John Lynch in the Warren Sapp football life believes in building up that defense from the interior. Solomon Thomas, yes, he is a DN, but in 3-4, a DN is on the interior. Reuben Foster, obviously, they're going to be putting him on that middle linebacker to be right next to Navarro Bowman. So he builds defenses up from the interior. So that's why it was such a just a pointless trade just to trade up one spot to get this person. And not only that, they gave up a ton of assets to get it. So smart move by the 49ers for trading down. And not only that, you look at the Bears, and they might have given up too much. And why the heck would you give Mike Glennon that kind of money? Mike Glennon might be Brock Osweiler 2.0. I am not kidding. He might be him. So I'm just not that big. And when it comes to Trubisky, a lot of people really, really like Trubisky. Obviously, he's the best rookie quarterback from this preseason. No question about it. However, there's still some concerns for accuracy because that was his big thing. He was the most accurate quarterback coming out of college, out of the entire draft class. But there's still some concerns accuracy. And ideally, how he runs his offense is still quite interesting. Timing's a little bit off, so he's not exactly pro-ready. When you compare him to Watson or Kaiser or Mahomes, yes, he might look as if they're best, but Watson, Mahomes are not going to start. Kaiser's starting simply because Brock Osweiler was his only competition. So that's the only reason why Kaiser's starting. And when I look at this, the Bears are just clearly not that talented to carry that team. Now, the next team is a team that I like, not a fan of, but what I like is the Detroit Lions. Now, when it comes to my Super Bowl winners of video, I made a video of what makes a Super Bowl winning team and all of that. Technically, the Detroit Lions have all three levels or have studs at all three levels that I care about. Quarterback play, pass rush, and safety play. They got all three levels. And they even have the dynasty level, and they have a corner in Darius Slay if they can develop into the right direction. They keep on improving. But obviously, the Detroit Lions, I'm not predicting them to go to the Super Bowl, nor am I predicting them to even become a dynasty. So when I look at this, the Detroit Lions, I thought their big issue last year was a lack of talent. This team needs to attack much more in free agency. And ideally, those mid-round picks, those mid-first-round picks that they're probably going to constantly be getting, they're going to have to draft from that spot. And it's not an easy spot to draft in, obviously. It's not. But you can be productive there. Obviously, that's how Pete Carroll found his success in Seattle, getting Earl Thomas, getting Bobby Wagner in the middle of the first round. So they obviously can't do that. But however, I still think that they need to be more aggressive in free agency. And they just didn't improve the talent. And ideally, I do enjoy Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford, a lot of people thought could have been an MVP just because he is heavily relied on in Detroit. But Detroit simply just doesn't have the weapons. And the goal line, it concerns me. Their number one weapon in the goal line might be, or for number one weapon for Matthew Stafford is Matt Asiata. That's a big concern. So there's a big scoring concern right there. Eric Decker was on the market, and yet they didn't even bring him in or even talk about bringing him. Why? You should be far more aggressive when addressing this because the talent around the Detroit Lions, sure, they're athletically gifted, but the quality of the players are clearly not there with the Lions. It's just not there. And obviously, I do enjoy watching Matt Stafford. I do enjoy watching Ezekiel Ansah, and I do enjoy watching Darius Slay. So there's a lot of players I enjoy to watch on this football team. However, I have to bring my emotions to a reasonable level. I have to make myself neutral. From a neutral perspective, I am not a big fan of the Detroit Lions making it to the playoffs this year or possibly even winning the division. So when I look at the Lions, I really don't see much of a chance for them to actually go anywhere or progress from last year. Now the next team is the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings, I looked at them when they won the first 5 weeks of the year. They were obviously the undefeated team, and I think by that point they were the number one team ranked by that point. They were in the power rankings. They were number one. And one thing for sure is that defense of the Vikings is legit. It is legit. I think I look at that. I really enjoy watching Xavier Rhodes, Harrison Smith, the D-line, and front seven. It's a legit group. You're talking about a legit caliber of a defense that can clearly win a Super Bowl. But the reason why they went 8-8 and didn't even make the playoffs was because of weapons. And I'm not going to blame it on Sam Bradford or Teddy Bridgewater's injury. Because the issue is they thought Adrian Peterson was going to be healthy that season. And Adrian Peterson, he didn't even look that great for the first 1 or 2 weeks of the year. And not only that, he looked as if that they lost him. They lost him. And their backup running backs were Matt Asiata and Jerick McKinnon. Matt Asiata is literally just there for 3rd down and 2 or on the goal line. That's the only point where you really use Matt Asiata. And Jerick McKinnon, scat back, he can block, he can catch. Decent player, but he's a backup caliber running back. Kyle Rudolph might have had his best statistical season as a receiver. However, He is a blocking tight end. He is meant to block. He is not a receiving threat. I'm sorry. This guy ain't Travis Kelce or Rob Gronkowski. I'm not a big fan of Travis Kelce. I don't know why I even said Travis Kelce. But he ain't Gronk. He ain't Graham. He ain't one of those players. He's not one of these guys you can use as a receiver. He's a blocker. And you can technically use him as a receiver, but he's not an elite receiving tight end. And that's the only reason why he got a lot of receptions last year and a lot of yards last year. And Stephon Diggs, I think, is overrated. I'm not a big Stephon Diggs guy. He could develop, but people just jump on Stephon Diggs and just think that this guy is so freaking amazing. Some people say he's the next Golden Tate or the next Antonio Brown. I look at Stephon Diggs. I think I'm not a big fan of him. When he was facing the Chicago Bears, he had a crap ton of receptions, but he only got 80 freaking yards after it. It was one of those 2 weeks. One of the weeks he actually got a crap ton of reception and a crap ton of yards. Good, that actually makes sense. But when you're facing against a crap secondary similar to the Bears and you get a ton of receptions, but you don't get that many yards, if you're considered the next Antonio Brown, you're supposed to stretch the field. It's about yards per catch by that point. And listen, look, yards per catch doesn't apply to every single receiver in the league. But if you are considered to be, or by Vikings fans, to be the next Antonio Brown, you're going to have to stretch the field. And the statistic that matters there is your yards per catch. And right there, Stephon Diggs that week, that looked really, really bad. And then they also got this Adam Thielen guy who's just another 900-yard receiver. Then you got Michael Floyd, who's another 900-yard receiver. There's no elite receiving talent right here. And I heard Jarvis Landry was on the market, and my God, why aren't the Vikings pursuing Jarvis Landry? Yes, he is. He will become a free agent, though, upcoming this season. I think that's definitely a guy the Vikings should attack and go after. Because the issue about it's not Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford, I think, is in the top 16 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Sam Bradford craps on Alex Smith. I truly believe that. And even though Alex Smith has some success in the playoffs, that's because he's had absurdly talented teams to carry them to the playoffs. And really, it's not Alex Smith. Alex Smith is a bus driver. That's how I view Alex Smith. Sam Bradford is a quarterback that's at least willing to throw the football down the field, and he can throw a damn good ball. And some people would say, well, look at Sam Bradford at St. Louis. He asked for way too much for a contract. Sure, he did, but one thing, that's good for Sam Bradford. And two, who is Sam Bradford's best receiver that he's ever played with? Just look at Sam Bradford. He's barely had any receiving talent around him. Jared Cook, decent receiver, but not a good one. He's had Tavon Austin, who has some great games here and there, but other than that, he's extremely inconsistent. Kenny Britt is okay. Stephon Diggs, you already know my opinion on Stephon Diggs. I made a video why he's overrated, but click after this video, guys, because obviously you want to hear how amazing Sam Bradford is. And I just look at it and see to myself that Sam Bradford has never really had that much talent around him. And Sam Bradford could be, eventually in a couple of years, could be the equivalent to what is a Jim Plunkett. What Jim Plunkett was, he was a comeback player of the year. He played for the New England Patriots when the Patriots weren't that great of a team. And then he moved to the Raiders, and then the Raiders, he won a Super Bowl there. I think he actually won 2 Super Bowls there. So when you look at this, Sam Bradford is a lot better than what people think. He's just never had talent around him. And that's why I look at that. And I still think the Vikings still have a chance to make the playoffs. They still have a chance, of course. But it's still highly unlikely because I still look at the NFC North and the NFC East, far more interesting divisions to have multiple teams to make the playoffs from both those divisions. So from that perspective, I don't think the Vikings will even get a wild card spot in this division. And then at number 1 is the Green Bay Packers. Yes, the Green Bay Packers. Now, when you look at this, you have Aaron Rodgers, the bad man himself. He's in greatest of all time consideration, and he still is. Even whenever Tom Brady wins a Super Bowl, I still think there's going to be people out there to say Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's respectable. And obviously, you're going to be favorited to win the division every year just because you have Aaron Rodgers, and it's just that simple. Now, when it comes to the Packers, they technically have all levels that they technically need. Nick Perry, if he can develop into the right direction, he can become a real good pass rusher. Clay Matthews has something to prove. Obviously, I think he had an off year last year, but I think he still can provide some pass rush right there. You also got Clinton's Dix. I think he's pretty good. And you got that safety play. But obviously, that Packers defense, those cornerbacks freaking suck. I'm sorry, those cornerbacks freaking blow. And last year, I predicted the Packers to go to the Super Bowl last year for the NFC. And they got to the NFC Conference game, so at least I was kind of close. However, they got absolutely killed by the Atlanta Falcons. Now, one thing for sure about the Packers, the reason why I'm not picking them this year is simply because I look at them and I am sick of them being predicted to go to the Super Bowl every year. I just can't because imagine it, because they need better cornerbacks. They just do. They just need that, and they just don't have that. And yes, Aaron Rodgers does have his own line, but when I look at his weapons around him, I find them to be I have mixed feelings about them. When I look at Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, and Davante Adams, I am not very impressed by that for multiple reasons. Number one, Randall Cobb is overrated because Randall Cobb, he might be versatile, but he's not a number one receiver. Also, I look at Jordy Nelson, number one receiver, but he's getting up there in age. And then Davante Adams, please. The guy doesn't get any freaking separation. Yes, he can catch the football in traffic. Yes, he can. But he doesn't help Aaron Rodgers one freaking bit. Martellus Bennett can be real good for them. He can be, but he has an injury history, and he's turning 30. Or he actually might even be 30. That's an issue right there. And not only that, they got a wide receiver playing running back for them. That's a big concern. And trust me, when it comes to Aaron Rodgers doesn't really need a running back to catch the ball. He just needs a running back that can run the freaking football. Obviously, 2013 Eddie Lacy would be freaking perfect for them, but that's clearly not the case right there. And when I look at the Packers, they're definitely a team that also aren't very aggressive in free agency. Ironically enough, I think all these teams need to attack more in free agency, but the one team that does is the Chicago Bears, and for some reason, they're just the bottom of the division, or the ass of the division as of right now. So when I look at this, I'm not predicting the Packers to go to the Super Bowl again this year. My Super Bowl prediction are the G-Men for the NFC. And obviously, if you want to watch my video on my top 5 teams for the power rankings of 2017, I made this like a handful of months ago. If you want to see that, click in the link in the description. I'm giving you a lot of links to click in the description, guys. But come on, you guys all want to see my videos. They're amazing. But when I look at the NFC North, it's a fairly interesting division, but obviously the NFC is the far more interesting conference than the AFC. However, I only think the NFC North is going to have one playoff team.